very well.
What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to a Easter Monday special. It's Monday Night Live. How you doing? Drop in the comments, say hello. Let me know where you're tuning in from today. We've got a bit of an info pack session, special treat for you. It's one of those Monday Night Live sessions where I share a topic that you're not going to see covered anywhere else. I'm going right into the detail today about how you can generate leads through private messages. For those of you watching, that's DMs for the younger audience, and for the older guys, direct message is what DM stands for. So there you go. Drop in the comments, say hello, guys. I have checked on my LinkedIn here, and I can see a few people active. There's a bit of a delay for me to see the comments, but make sure you say hello. Let's make this as interactive as possible so you get the most value. So 177 leads in 30 days is the topic. Might sound like a bit clickbaity, but that was the number of leads we managed to generate 1 month using private messaging strategies for my business. And I have to be honest with you, the game has changed in 2025, which is one of the reasons why I wanted to hop on this call. See the comments starting to come through now. Welcome. Thank you for spending your time with me tonight, Chantel, on Easter Monday. Hope you had a good Easter with the family. Andrew, legend. Welcome, mate. Hope you had a good Easter. Have you ever opened your LinkedIn inbox and you feel like you just walked into a car dealership? Do you know what I mean? When people just start pitching straight away as soon as they've connected with you. And we all know that turns people off. And one of the biggest objections I get, when I talk about lead generation and outreach is, oh yeah, I've seen all those LinkedIn messages. They're spammy. I would never send anything like that. I'm not salesy and all that kind of stuff. And the truth is, selling doesn't work. What we're going to do is change your mindset around what we're actually doing on the chat here. What we're actually trying to do is serve. So we're going to stop selling and we're going to start serving or start helping. Welcome, Daniel. Yeah, guys, get active in the chat. It's a good place to do some networking, build your audience as well. People do like to follow people who are active in the comments. So get active in there, ask questions as we go. One thing before we get into, some templates and what you should actually be thinking about when you're sending messages for the purpose of generating leads is LinkedIn is a social media site. So there's a couple of clues there. Social, right? So what does social media mean? Well, it means that people are going there to hang out. So the social media platform is like a cocktail party, or in LinkedIn's case, it's a little bit like a business networking Friday drinks. So I want you to understand that the news feed where people are posting and where you comment and where you kind of hang out is like it's like the party, right? It's like the party. You know what most people are doing is, funnily enough, like they're not even in the party, right? They're actually out the front door trying to get more people to come into the party, if that makes sense. Instead of focusing on the connections that they have and the community they have, they're constantly trying to get more followers. They're outside the front door. How silly is that if you think about it in terms of that analogy? Like if you went to a business networking function and let's say you did expect there to be 1,000 people and there was only 20 people, would you spend your time getting to know those 20 people, asking them questions, adding value, building relationships, or would you be standing out the front of the venue trying to get more people to come in? Absolutely crazy. So it's a social media platform, but it's built for business. So that's where the cocktail party is. Your LinkedIn profile is almost like, it's like around the cocktail party, they've got these exhibition stands, and your LinkedIn profile is your exhibition stand. It's where people come over if they already know you or if they want to find out more about what you do. So that's where you talk about what you do, your background, your expertise, and show your social proof. When you're actually networking in the feed, you want to be making it all about the person you're speaking to. You don't walk up to somebody and say, hello, I'm an account executive with XYZ company and we won all these awards. No, you go up and say, hey, how you doing? What do you do? And ask them questions about, that's really interesting. Tell me more about that. So, it's not necessarily the same scripts, but it's the same philosophy. The problem is when people get behind this thing, when this is my keyboard I'm holding up, they lose a lot of their social skills. when you're on a computer, your empathy naturally goes down because you're not in front of somebody. You're seeing them pop up, as a profile pic and a headline, and all of a sudden, like, a lot of the social skills don't apply. And that's understandable because there's a lot of spammy accounts and fake accounts and all that kind of stuff. But what we want to try and do is cut through the noise and do what the other people aren't. Okay, so a couple of things when it comes to LinkedIn, like why LinkedIn, right? So people are in work mode when they're on LinkedIn. On Instagram and TikTok, what are they doing? They're hanging out with their friends and family. LinkedIn, they're there to make business decisions, to hire people, to network. And so this is where money is made. They expect professional conversations. Excuse me. So if I send you a connection request, and there's relevance in business, that's totally what LinkedIn is for. It's for building relationships. We're there to network. Whereas on Facebook, it can be a little bit strange. So, and then if you private message somebody on the basis that you're adding value, or if it's about business, it's actually totally acceptable, which is why selling on the DMs, by the DMs and messages, is so powerful on LinkedIn. All right, tonight I'm going to share that the way that we've been told to sell is broken. The mindset behind this new 2025 formula, sell by chat. The right way to send messages that create conversations. And if you approach like a peer and not a pitch, you'd be amazed at the results you get. Anyway, LinkedIn is like outreach, is like planting seeds. You can't just throw them out there and hope something lands. You've got to have some sort of strategy behind it. And the person on the other end of it won't know that this is a strategy, because actually a big part of it is making it seem like you've typed it just for them, and it's relatable, and you're actually driving the conversation forward. So we've got a couple of sections overall to cover. First of all, there's the connection request, right? Which is the first step. You've got to find people, then you've got to connect with them, and then you've got to send the private message where you set the appointments, right? Nobody wants to be sold to. This is the way that the world is at the moment. People don't want to be sold to, but people do want to buy. What kind of people want to buy? Look, if you're in B2B, it's only the people, it's not everyone, it's only the people that have the problem that you solve. It's only the people that have the problem you solve. So if this is your network, right, all these people, some of them not going to have the problem. There's only going to be a portion of them that have the problem you solve. So when you're approaching people with private messages, they might be in the target market. They might be a CEO of a company with 100 staff in a mining industry in Perth, whatever it is, the perfect target market. But you don't know if they're part of this section or this section. So how do you find out if they have the problem that you solve? Or another way to word that is, if they have a need for your service. Because you don't want to start selling to people until you understand whether or not, they have a need or they have the problem you solve. And they've actually got to tell you that. You can't just look at them and say, oh, they're on page 3 of Google, they need to be on page 1. They might not want more leads. The founder might not want to grow his company. You have to hear it from them. And then you need one more step. You need permission to offer a solution. A permission to share your experience when you help someone with a similar problem. Permission marketing, very important. So how do you find out if somebody has the problem you solve? Let me know in the chat, guys. Any ideas? Welcome. I can't see who that one is. That one didn't come through. Dane, Hassan, welcome. What are the modern strategies to find high quality leads? What are the subtle? We're going to be covering all of that, mate. You're in the right place. We're going to get right into that. Post to engage with to start with, absolutely. So, one of the things that Chantel's raised, which is a big deal at the moment, is, if you engage with somebody's content before you send them a connection request, the chances of you getting a positive response rate actually increases by almost 3 times. On average, we go from 35% conversion rate to 88%. So get active in the feed, get active in the cocktail party, right? But no one wants to be sold to. People want relevance, empathy, and value. Value before commitment. There's 2 things going through a prospect's mind when you send them a connection request. Is this person going to take from me, or are they going to give value to me? Now, You might fully intend to give value, but the language that you use is going to determine, because people don't make decisions based on logic. They don't. They justify decisions based on logic. Even in B2B, they make decisions based on emotion. And things like whether or not to accept a connection request is made lightning quick. It's emotion. So you've got to be careful with the language you use, how long your sentences are, whether it seems like it's a scripted connection request, right? There is a very good case for making your punctuation not perfect these days with AI, right? It's a very clear indication to people that this was not written by a robot. When you start pitching, before you find out, excuse me, if they have the problem that you solve, you will lose them. They will ghost you. They will not respond. And then you get stuck in follow-up mode, which is not where you want to be. When you lead with service and when you lead with curiosity, you keep the conversation going and you make them feel seen and heard and understood. And that's how you start conversations and build relationships. The goal of social media is not to make sales. Well, it is, but not immediately. The goal of social media is to start conversations. If you have more conversations, guess what? You'll build more relationships. And if you build more relationships with the right people, you will make more sales. That's how it works. But you have to go in with the mindset of getting the conversation started. Okay? All right. Now, what not to do. So you don't want to send cold pitch in the first message. Don't do the 3-paragraph essay that no one reads. Assume, when you're writing an invitation, when you're writing a message, assume that no one's going to read it. Most people, when they start writing, they assume that people are going to read it. Assume the opposite, that no one's going to read it. You'll put so much more effort into the first line and make it short and succinct to keep their attention, to hold their attention. You don't need to make it long. And I'm going to tell you exactly the formula I use to write these connection requests and private messages. And you don't want to just send the generic LinkedIn connection request. There are people out there that say, oh, you send the generic LinkedIn connection request, you get the same conversion rate as when you customize it. Yes, but most people customize them terribly. You've seen them come through. They just did like salespeople. You do it well, you get a high conversion rate, and you'll get higher quality prospects connecting with you. Okay, so don't do any of those things. Don't add a call to action. All right, we're going to get into connection requests now that actually work, that get accepted. So we'll break down the perfect connection request. So I learned very early on in my career that business is all about relationships. My dad used to take at least 100 flights a year, and all he was doing was traveling around the world, meeting clients, building relationships. Sometimes they weren't even a client yet. And he'd travel around the world to build that relationship with them. And, when I come across social media and LinkedIn, I thought, oh, here we go. You can do this without leaving your home now, if you want to. And there are lots of people making millions of dollars without leaving their home office. Here we go. Lots of questions coming through, guys. Just taking a pause to have a look through these. Ask if they have any problems. Yes, we're going to get into exactly what to say, but sometimes it's not even until the phone call that you do this qualifying, because a lot of people will say, oh, do you want to have a call to see how my SEO service can help you? Why don't you have a call to find out a little bit more about them and see if there's an opportunity to add value? We're going to get into that in a little bit, because the whole purpose of a call is actually to ask them a couple of questions, and you will say things like, oh, how did you get into this business anyway? What are your biggest challenges at the moment? Are you currently doing any marketing? Or depending on, obviously it depends on your industry, but you want to find out like what they've done, what they're doing, and what their plans are for the future. And then along that conversation, you'll find out if they have a problem. But generally what they're going to do when you send them a connection request is they're going to click on your name and look at your profile. Now, if your profile is optimized well, that will do the job of building credibility. So you don't need to do it in the private messages. And so when you ask questions like how's business, they're responding from a place of understanding what you specialize in. And so during that conversation, it's natural that it would lead to you offering value if there's an opportunity to do so. And you'll actually find they start telling you their problems that you can solve right away naturally when they see what you do by reading your profile. By the way, when they click on your name, just one click of the finger, that makes the profile, them consuming the profile, it's an inbound activity. They've asked for the information, which means they'll read it. Whereas if you send it to them, they're not going to read it because that's an outbound activity. It's a subtle difference, but it makes a huge, huge difference in the results. The 11 most boring words in the English language. I'd like to add you to my professional network on LinkedIn. That's what the generic message says. So stand out from the crowd. Don't rush your invitations. Take the time to have a look at their profile. Have a look at some of their posts. Have a look at where, if you have to, where they went to university. Find some common ground. Find something that you can mention so you have some sort of familiarity. So you want to mention, the reason that you're reaching out, what you have in common, and then I'd love to connect. You just keep it to those 3 things. It shouldn't be longer than 2, maximum 3 lines. Okay, so you want to build a network of relevant people. There's nothing worse than having a huge network where it's just everyone. So don't accept connection requests from everybody. Make sure they either are in your target market or they're likely to be connected with somebody in your target market. Those are the 2 criteria that I use. So if they're from the other side of the planet and they're not likely to be connected with anyone that could be a customer of yours, don't connect with them. Otherwise, what you're going to find is your LinkedIn inbox will get full of sales letters and recruiters because that's who's sending you invitations. And then it's hard to get people to engage on your content because you've got such a broad range of connections and they're the first people that will see your content. So build an audience with people that are relevant. Start with your existing clients, previous colleagues, mutual connections, business partners, even competitors, because who's likely to have, be connected to people that could be clients, competitors. So, obviously use that strategically, but connecting with competitors can be a good strategy. If you're looking for a job, potential employer, thought leaders and influencers in your industry are going to be very important because they have big audiences. If you engage on their stuff, they'll engage on yours. You're just going to get lots more visibility if you start connecting with these influential people. So think about it in terms of like your industry, but also geographically, right? So if you're in Melbourne, there's a big influencer in Melbourne, there's a good chance that they're going to be likely, to connected to a lot of people in your target audience just by the fact that they've got a big audience, if that makes sense. When you're reaching out to them, be specific, show that you actually care. So, say, I saw your post recently, it was brilliant because, and then say why, rather than just it was awesome, and you come across as a fanboy. Would love to connect. And your call to action is always to get them to accept the connection request. Or I've seen you pop up in the feed. I noticed we aren't connected. Let's change that. Cheers. And that's basically it. So, most people see connection requests as a number. So they just hit connect. You actually want to be targeted and specific and make it customized. You'll get much better results. And look, if you comment on 3 or 4 of their posts before you send a connection request, they are going to accept. Quite often we get 100% conversion rate when we've done it 3 or 4 times. All right, let's get into the core of tonight's episode. So this is a new concept. I haven't talked about this publicly before, I don't think. It's a 2025 thing. So find, connect, engage was a 3-step strategy, and we added nurture before find, which is to comment on people's stuff. Now, the engage stage would normally, in the past, for the last 11 years, we would send a follow-up message that asked for a meeting. And it would say, hey, thanks for connecting. I noticed that you're in this industry. I'd love to find out more about what you do, see if there's an opportunity for us to work together or not. What's the best number to reach you on? And we would get, anywhere between 10 to 35% conversion rate. When the profile's optimized, of course, profile looks good. They'll click on the name, read the profile. We send that message. Now, last year, I noticed that number, that percentage conversion rate starting to drop when I didn't expect it to in certain industries. It still works if you're very targeted or you've got a lot of value to provide. If you're looking to invest in companies, for example, or if you're looking for business partners where it's a mutually beneficial relationship. But selling by chat is powerful, man. So you'll notice it's more like a chat now, right? So you've got the notifications popping up down the bottom of LinkedIn on your phone. You kind of get messages and it's more like you're texting rather than email. So the game's changed. So it's sell by chat. And so it's great because you can lead the conversation by asking questions, right? So you got to think of yourself as more like a trusted guide, not a salesperson, because you don't want to close in the private messages. You want to connect, qualify, and then pull the conversation offline onto a call or a Zoom call. And that's where you can really start to, lead it towards more of a sales conversation. You do need to measure your results. Now, obviously, it's easy when you're sending out one message because you just have a conversion rate of the number of people that accept. What you want to measure is, first of all, the number of new connections that you're getting, the number of people that you're reaching out to after that, and the number of people that buy. I mean, at the end of the day, the best thing to measure is return on investment. And if you do that for 3 months, you should have a rough idea of whether or not this is working for you or you need to change something. Because I look at a lot of people that are doing sell by chat and they're just getting it wrong. They're just not, they're sending far too much information. They're asking more than one question. They're making it too complicated, and they're just coming across as ingenuine, right? So you just need to change your mindset. There's a bit of a code of conduct, if you will, for private messages. So first of all, and you might want to write these down, be human. What does that mean? Well, write how you talk, like a text message, like you're texting somebody who is a friend. So it's not necessarily always going to be perfect long sentences. Well, there's not going to be long sentences, right? Just speak how you talk. That makes you human, and you don't come across as an AI bot, which a lot of these LinkedIn messages are. You've got to stand out from the salesperson. That's the first thing you got to do. Now, be curious. I don't know, you might have to put it on your wall somewhere or something, but you remember that curiosity is how you start conversations. Be genuinely curious to find out more, but be specific about what you're curious about. When I hear that clients have spent 45 minutes or an hour on a phone call on the first appointment, I get very concerned because I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? Oh, we got along great. It was really, really good meeting. And they don't get the sale. It should be a 15-minute conversation, because you're asking the right questions, and leading the conversation in the right direction. Be of service, add value before you start asking for things, and you can only find out how to add value by asking questions. Be honest, don't manipulate. You don't need to convince everyone, all right? If people aren't interested, leave them alone. Go on to the next guy. There's plenty of people you can contact. 1.2 billion members on LinkedIn. Be brief. So, you don't want to send more than 2 to 3 sentences per message if you can help it. And the last question should be, 2 to 3 sentences per message, and the last sentence should be a question. So here's the anatomy of a great engagement message. Before I get into that, Sangeeta's got a question. I hope I pronounced that right, by the way, Sangeeta. Can I generate leads through posts? Absolutely. A good post will generate DMs. Absolutely. There's a good strategy that a lot of creators are using where they offer a lead magnet, something of value, by offering something of value. So it's just a little bit more value than you can provide in the post. It might be an ebook, it might be a long form video. And they get them to comment below. I swear I invented this. I started doing this 5 years ago. Now everyone's doing it. In my industry, so in your industry, if you're not in LinkedIn marketing, it's probably pretty rare in your industry. So I'd encourage you to do it. But instead of putting the link in your post and driving people off LinkedIn, what will happen if you do that is, because you're driving people off of LinkedIn, they're actually not going to comment because they're going to be going to the next window. And so you won't get much engagement. So they won't get much reach. And, LinkedIn don't necessarily like people leaving their site. You won't get as much reach. So what you want to do is ask people to comment below. When I do this, I release a new ebook. In fact, I got one I can share with you right now, a brand new one. I haven't posted about this one yet. I get hundreds of leads in one post. Let me bring this up for you. LinkedIn messaging templates, you need to know. I've released these every 3 or 4 years. This is my 2025 version. I'll give you a quick squiz. If you want a copy of this, just type templates into the chat. I'll DM you with it. I mean, this is an example of how to generate leads through content. So I've got all my best scripts in here. These are the ones that convert the best. So you've got new connections, then you've got engagement if they viewed your profile, commented on post, etc. How to add value, relevant articles, podcast invites, free audit, and then following up, how you different scripts that work really well. If you want a copy of that, just drop templates in the chat. I'll make sure I private message it to you. All right, let's keep going, shall we? Okay, the anatomy of a great message. So first of all, you want to break the ice, make it feel natural. So, hey, Jeff, I saw your post on LinkedIn marketing. Let's do something different. I know who's used LinkedIn marketing as a bloody example. Hey, Ben, I saw your post on the interest rate rise. Totally agree with your point. And I'm curious, how is this affecting your investment strategy, for example? Or share something useful. So, I saw your comment on my post, and funnily enough, I wrote a short guide on this exact thing. If you're interested, I'm happy to send it over. See what I'm doing there? I'm not actually sending it over right away. I'm getting their permission first, because then they'll actually take notice because they've asked for it. And then invite them in. So, how are you currently handling this challenge? Like, what is your biggest frustration? Are you currently using an SEO provider? If you're curious, the questions will come to you naturally. Keep them short and sweet. Now, handling responses, right? And silence, because some people don't respond, is you just got to do it naturally like you would a friend. So if they say thanks and that's it, ask a question to keep it going, And if they don't reply, you want to follow up once or twice and say, oh, just checking you got my message. Oh, did you see the above? Did you get my report? That's it. You don't have to write a long thing, and definitely don't assume that they have an objection. People are busy. Okay. And before you message somebody, engage with their content. If you've just connected with them or not, just engage with their content. If they're posting, comment on their posts. Most ideal clients don't have a lot of comments, unless you're selling to creators. And so when you do it, it releases a lot of dopamine for them, because they've taken the time to create this thing, right? This post. And it may or may not be good, but they've put some thought into it. They've put some time into it. And, you've given them a comment. They're going to be like, oh, wow, cool. I've got a comment. And they're going to look at your profile. It gives them a dopamine hit. You do that 2 or 3 times, they're actually naturally going to like and trust you. And it actually builds familiarity as well. There's a thing called the mere exposure effect, where basically the more times that somebody is exposed to your brand, which in this case could just be your face and your headline, the more familiar you are to them, which means they like you more, trust you more likely to buy from you. McDonald's, Coca-Cola, they all know this. That's why their brand is everywhere. And so think about it. When you're commenting and you're engaging on the feed and you're posting and you're DMing, and it's actually getting your brand out there multiple times. So you become more familiar. And that's the game on social media. How can I become more familiar with my target market, so when they're ready to make a decision, they choose me over the next guy? That's how you win at social media. Got a bit worked up there. Follow-up strategy. So you could even say, if you've already said, did you get my message above? If it's a week later, you could say, hey, Ben, I know that things can get busy, or I know that it's been Easter holidays. I just wanted to check if you had a chance to see my message. Okay. Most people are going to respond, because it's, a little bit rude not to. Especially like you're taking the time to follow up. Most other salespeople are not going to do it. 80% of sales are made after the 5th follow-up. 80% of sales are made after the 5th follow-up, and that's generally telephone calls we're talking about. And the number of salespeople that follow up 5 times, what is it? I've got a job to remember, but I think it's like 5% or 8. No, it's 8%. I posted about this recently. It's definitely 8%. 8% of people follow up 5 times, yet 80% of sales happen there. So you must follow up. That's where the money is. So this is how you sell by chat. No cold pitching, no spamming, just real human conversations that lead to real results. Give it a go, guys. Practice makes perfect. If you're getting responses, it's working. If you're not, it's not. Lead the conversation offline. So once you've got the message strategy and you when they reply, this is actually where most people fumble. They lose the ball. They panic. They start pitching, or they start selling in the chat, or the guy might come back and say, well, what do you guys do? Oh, we've been developing for 20 years. Then you lost them, mate. You've lost them. If they ask you a question like that, like, what do you do? Oh, more than happy to give you a full rundown. Hey, why don't we have an intro call so I can find out a bit more about you, you can find out a bit more about me, how you placed, say, Thursday or Friday morning. You're making it really easy for them to say yes. Thursday or Friday morning. They're already checking their calendar before they've even decided. And now, when you get on that call, you have to take control of that call right away, because they're going to be wondering, what's this call about? See, a lot of you requesting the templates, beautiful. When you get on the call, guys, you have to take control of the conversation right away. Here's what you say, right? The purpose of the call is for me to find out a bit more about what you do and introduce myself and see if there's an opportunity for us to continue the conversation, opportunity for us to work together. Is that okay if I just ask you a few questions? I might even take some notes while we go. I won't need more than 10 or 15 minutes of your time. How does that sound? It lowers the pressure. It lets them know that you're in control. They can just relax into it. Oh, he's just going to ask some questions. Only going to take 10, 15 minutes. You don't want it to take longer than that. Even if they're the hot prospect, you want to slam in a second phone call with them. Book in a second call. So at the end of the first call, make sure you book in the second call. You can do a 2-appointment close. Some businesses do 3 appointments. I think 2 appointments is good. Sometimes it takes longer. It just depends on the business. Okay. One of the other things you could write to them is, if you're in a conversation, is would it make sense to have a brief chat about this, to swap ideas and see if I can point you in the right direction? Point you in the right direction. Love that language. Sometimes I actually just say to people, like, especially if they're in financial services, I do a lot of work with professional services firms, financial services, accounting, law. If I've just connected with a CEO of like a big financial services firm, I'll say, Ben, really appreciate you connecting. I love what you're doing at JP Morgan, for example. I've been running LinkedIn marketing for 12 years. Just letting you know that if you ever have a question about LinkedIn, I'm always here to help. I'm just offering value. Like, I'm not selling to them. I'm just saying, if you ever need anything, you just give me a shout. I got you. And I will answer their questions without charging them. Absolutely. And that goes for the rest of you as well. I believe in adding value before you make the sale. I believe in that. Like, I think that's a great way to sell, is to add value first, because you're giving them a taste. If the free stuff is good and I get value out of it and I get results and they answer my question, they solve my problem, what's the paid stuff going to be like? It's going to be awesome. They already trust you at this point. That's why content is so powerful, because if you give somebody content that they can put into action and actually get value from, they already trust you. And when the time comes for them to do business with somebody, it's you they're choosing. They are choosing. So when you're on the phone call, you want to take the lead. So yeah, the first question is kind of like an icebreaker, like you just want to get them talking, right? Most people start talking to avoid the uncomfortable silence. Big mistake. You want to get them talking. So tell me, how did you get into this business anyway? And they'll start telling you, right? And then you go past, present, future. And not too much information, like just the past. How did you get into this business anyway? Oh, how long ago was that? Okay, great. And so what are you working on now? What's your biggest goal this year? Where do you see the business in 5 years? What do you think your biggest challenge is getting there? Have you considered LinkedIn marketing at all? Do you use a CRM? Ask questions that will uncover whether or not they have the need. Because as soon as they say, yes, I use a CRM, let's say you work for HubSpot and they've got a CRM, another one, you'll say, oh, how's that been going for you? Curious. Have you found any challenges with it? If they say, oh no, it's been going great, I'll say, fantastic. That's really good to hear. How long have you been working with them? Might only be a month. How long is the contract for? Oh, 3 months. Hey, it might be a good idea if I check in with you in a couple of months and just see how everything's going. See what I'm doing there? And then you don't sell it to them on that phone call. You don't start telling them more about what you do. You just make a time for 2 months' time. You only sell to people when they have the problem that you solve. Where do you see your biggest opportunity for improvement is? What's currently is working really well for you? What you're listening for when they give you the answers is frustrations, challenges, problems, desires, gaps you can fill, right, with what you do. And if they open up, they are inviting you to help. When they tell you their problem, what you want to do is tell them their problem back to them using their own words. And if you can explain their problem, how it's come out of their brain, they will automatically assume that you have the solution. Isn't that powerful? You don't actually even have to tell them about the solution. So in my content, I'm always talking about the problem, because if I can define the problem really well, then they'll automatically assume that I have the solution. Now, how do you transition to the offer? Well, first of all, you need to know that they have the problem that you solve, and they need to have told you that. And then you want to ask for permission. So would it be helpful if I shared how I've helped others in a similar spot? If they say yes, they've invited you to sell your solution, and then you might book another call and share your screen and run through a proposal with them. I don't believe you should email proposals, right? If you're going to put together a proposal, you want to make sure you go through it with them so they actually consume it. And look, it's not going to be 100% self-explanatory. And also don't assume that people are going to read your proposal. They're not. They're going to skim through it. I mean, few will, the detail-oriented people, but a lot of people aren't detail-orientated. Mixing up my words here. If they're not ready, don't panic. The goal is not to close everyone. You just want to find out who's ready to buy and who's not quickly. And if they're not ready, keep them in your content funnel and send a reminder. Send a follow-up, in 30 to 60 days. Keep giving value through content. And once you've done the call, it's always a good idea to send a recap, like in a message or in an email. Just recap to say, oh, it's great to chat. It's great to hear about these goals. Mention the fit, the opportunity. Reiterate the value. So you might send them a LinkedIn message that says, hey, Ben, great chatting today. I loved hearing about your plans to grow your business on LinkedIn. Based on what you shared, I'm confident that we are the right partner to help. Let me know if you'd like to book in a call. See, I would have already booked in my notes here. I've got this message, but I would have booked the call in on the phone call. So it would have been, I would say, I look forward to chatting with you on our agreed time. You always want to end the phone call with the next step in mind. Very important. Let's have a look. We got lots of people requesting the templates, guys. If you've just jumped on, we have got these LinkedIn messaging templates. I haven't posted about these yet. You're seeing them here first. LinkedIn messaging templates, my best templates, all different categories there. And if you want those, you just type in templates in the chat and I'll private message them to you tomorrow. It'll be tomorrow now. Okay. So in summary, guys, the goal is conversations, not consultations. Value, not volume. Long-term trust over short-term tactics. About building relationships at the end of the day. And you can't build a relationship while you're trying to extract value out of another human being. Let that sink in. You can't build a relationship while you're trying to extract value out of another human being. So if somebody says, after you send them a message, what are you trying to sell me? Oh, I'm not trying to sell you, mate. I'm not trying to sell you anything. I was just curious to find out a bit more about what you do. Okay? You're not selling to anyone. You're not selling to anyone until they've told you that they've got the problem and you've got permission. Keep it personalized, engage consistently. You start conversations, you serve, don't sell. It's not about being a slick salesperson. It's actually about being a human and pulling the conversation offline. But this is where the money is made. Yes, content is important and it's a long-term strategy, guys. Content is a long-term strategy. This will put money in your pocket tomorrow. Before we wrap up, I'll tell you a quick story. When I started my business, I quit my job. I was broke. I was $20,000 in debt. As I was driving home from quitting my job, my petrol light came on. I didn't know how I was going to fill my petrol tank up. I knew I'd get home, but I didn't know how to fill it up again. And I get home, and as the sun goes down, I go to turn on the light switch, and click, click, no lights come on because I hadn't paid my electricity bill. So I'm now sitting in a dark apartment, $20,000 in debt. No job. And, it's not easy I was in sales, so it's not easy just to get another sales job and make money immediately because you need, time. They don't give you leads immediately, et cetera, et cetera. $20,000 in debt. I was going to get evicted. I was not far off being homeless. And that's one of the reasons I do the CEO sleep out. I've been doing that for 11 years. I think it's 11 years. It's coming up in June, actually. and I got an extension cable to run down the stairwell to a power socket. And it wasn't long enough, so I actually found another extension cable, connected them together, got it into the stairwell of my apartment building to a power socket, and I connected the other end of it to a desk lamp. And I turned the desk lamp on and sat in my dark apartment, and under that desk lamp I wrote a business plan to start Australia's first LinkedIn marketing agency. Now, at the time, it was like LinkedIn and a lot of other stuff, but anyway, it ended up being just LinkedIn. The next day, I hit LinkedIn, sent some messages out, got a phone call by 8 a.m. The guy was a owner of a real estate agency. And I said to him, are you interested in investing in your marketing? And he said, oh, look, I spent all my budget for this year. I'm not interested. I said, what about your real estate agents? I said, do you think that you could get your real estate agents together this afternoon for me to come and talk to them? And he said, why on earth would I do that? Who the hell's this kid calling me, asking me, if I want to invest in marketing, and then get my real estate agents in the bloody room this afternoon? And I said, well, look, what I'm going to do, since your budget's tied up, is I'm going to convince them to invest in your brand. What I was actually planning to do was get them to invest in their personal brand, which obviously would help his business. 4 p.m., 12 agents showed up in the conference room. I was there ready to go. I pitched a one-page website. So if your name's John Scott, you get johnscott.com, a Facebook profile, and a LinkedIn profile. 3 things. And then that way, you've got those 3 things. They'll show up at the top of the search results when somebody Googles your name. So you're controlling the search results. You need to do that. So it's a personal branding package. 8 of the 12 agents said yes. 6 paid me on the spot. It was $2,500. So I made $15,000 my first day in business. I had no business cards, no electricity, I was getting evicted. I had no website. All I had was a LinkedIn account, So that's the power of what we're talking about right now. You can't do that through content. You do that through private messages and content, but the DMs is where the money is made. I'll leave you with that, guys. Thanks so much for being here. I really appreciate you listening to Monday Night Live, and I hope to see you next week. We're talking about LinkedIn video secrets next week. I've got a whole course coming out on LinkedIn video soon, so I've got a lot of value to share with you next week on Monday Night Live. Thanks for being here. Have a great week in business, and I'll speak to you soon. Peace.